All right, hi guys, how's it going? Sean Darling here. Today, I've got a little sketch here in Photoshop. Let me make sure that we are. I got a little sketch here in Photoshop that I've turned the contrast down, turned the opacity down, took all the color out. I'm just going to be using it a little bit as a little bit of a trace over to get my size and shape the same. This is just an image that I came up with, but the client wanted a watercolor. So we're going to do it in a watercolor style. And I've got to, of course, create the separate parts and stuff for layering, for eventually taking it into Moho for animation. And this is going to be done with a mesh that goes over the top of it for, like mesh warping and stuff, and attached to bones and things for animation rigging. So we're going to have that little layer up here at the top. I've also got a layer of watercolor paper you can see here. This is Kyle's watercolor paper, and I'm using a lot of the Kyle's brushes. I'm also using the Kyle Ultimate Pencil hard for my outlining right now. The hardest time I have, though, the hardest thing for me to do is to remember to not do the paint on the pencil layer, not do the pencil layer on the trace over layer and stuff. So a big thing I could be doing that I should have been doing, well, yesterday especially, is locking my layers that shouldn't be being painted on as I'm actually working with them. So that's what I highly recommend. So I created a layer here called lines. Just for now, it's just a standard line work layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw on that, and then eventually cut this apart into separate pieces, touch those up, and then export them out as a PSD with separated layers and whatnot. But for the initial part, I'm just going to be painting it. So I'm going to start off just working here and drawing my good old outlines and stuff. And of course, it's always good to be able to remember what your buttons do. Okay, cool. So without further delay, I'm not a fan of that ado word. I'm going to go ahead and just get in here and start doing a little bit of line work here. I'm not going to do anything, that's the wrong color. Not going to do anything, well, actually that's not horrible. Let's use that color. I'm going to make I'm just going to test my pencil lines here. Let's make it a little bit thicker, because this is going to be a very small, not horribly small, but small enough character. I'm just going to go with maybe a 16. See what that looks like. Is that too big? No, it's worked perfectly. That'll work perfectly. And I'm just going to draw out the general shape here. Of what I will want. If y'all are watching, there is a chat window. So please, use that if you want to talk. I don't know why we're not getting any. That is because your lines need to go on the top, fool. And we're going to make this line layer also a multiply. That way I can see what I'm drawing. I'm like, why do my lines keep disappearing? Well, that would be it. They do need to go in a certain order. Why is that doing that? Let me just undo a couple things here. Let's get this going. Again, I need to put my line work on the top and make sure, like I said, it's in a multiply. All right, cool. So with 12 steps erased and put back in, we're going to keep going. Let's just try this again. I only have problems during live streams. It's just the way it needs to be, apparently. So I'm just trying to go with some very simple strokes here and not try to make things too choppy. Keeping it, you know, as close to kind of like, I usually do a sketch, so this is like not the sketching phase. This is more of a closer to finished line work. I have a little undo on my screen I should be using here too. There's a lot of doing and undoing when it comes to line work. For anybody that's done it, you know that you will draw a line like that, go back, undo it, redraw it, until you get it just right. These aren't, it's not brain surgery or surgery as far as, you know, your precision needs to be, but still. The garbage in, garbage out principle really does apply, so the better you can do it, the better it's going to look. Just going to do one more time. I don't like that line. Like I say, I'm not drawing pieces yet, so I'm not going to do these underlying lines that would be under that beak and all that. That'll happen when I cut stuff apart later. I'm going to do some lines here that may or may not be on the artwork, just to give myself that guide where I want the color to be. I can always erase those later. Hope you guys can hear me. I think you can. This is erasing this white background. It's going to be its own set of stuff here shortly, but there's another reason why I'm outlining these, because I'm going to do a selection that the color is going to be on. It doesn't have to go outside the lines, yada yada yada. So I have a system here, essentially. Let's zoom into these legs now. I'm not going to do the branch because it's not part of the character. We will do the branch later over in, well, probably anyway, over in, and he's not even going to be on this branch. You know, this is a bird that's going to be on the ground essentially at first, and you'll see. I guess my initial lines probably should have been more here, but we can add extra lines here. Some extras. Being funny. It's so extra. Well, it was funny to me. And what I'm doing here mainly is trying to get an outline so that I can create this mask I'm going to do. And I'm not going to use a layer mask, I don't believe here. I'm going to just do a selection mask. So I'll just select it manually. Very tired today, so if you hear my voice cracking and whatnot, I'm just a little tired. Alright, so that should be good. There may be some gaps here and there, but they're not, I mean, they shouldn't be a problem. You can set it to fill the gaps for you. Looks like I've got a few that probably could use a little touching here and there. No, 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 don't touch me. Alright, let's get this maybe a little better closed for the moment. Like I said, the purpose of this mainly is to create an outline, and then I can come in just with a selection now, like my I guess my magic wand tool should work. Let's try an object selection, even though I don't really do that this way at this stage, but let's see if that will work. Just anything saves the time. It seems to work okay. I'm probably going to have to go in here, see, because I don't want it selecting those lines in the inside. I just wanted like an outside selection. So what I will wind up doing, probably, I might have to manually select. Let's see if the magic wand selects that from the inside, which it does. That works as well, I think. The only thing I don't want it to do is select these lines inner and outer like that. So let's try to just take a color at this point. I'm just going to select like something in the yellows, kind of like I had the overall. I'm just going to fill this. And this is just going to, like I said, separate this from everything else, which it has not done. So I'll deselect that. And you can see it's not fully enclosed. Probably because of this right here, I think mostly. And like I said, I can go around and I can paint the actual closed shape. There we go. It just needed that little bit there. And I think I can do the legs the same way. This just gives me a base, you know, to work with here. It'll make sense in a minute. It doesn't matter that this color is yellow. It just needs to be a closing the shape color. I can go back in and refill that real quick. This just allows me also to select this as a mask. Hopefully that makes some sense. And then, with that all done, I can select the background and delete it. And so you can see that that's all we're going to be left with, which is what we want. So now it's a separate shape. It works like a mask. If I reselect it, it will select that like a mask. This is only going to be necessary for a few more minutes. We're going to leave the paper on and locked. So within this line layer, I guess, or maybe even without it, I can get rid of those colors now, because that's what I'm going to want to do. I don't want to have color in my line work. So we're going to select this once again, adjust the color, and zap that away. And we should have, when I deselect this, I think it's Shift D, Control D. Where's my select menu? There. This will be Control D. You'll see we just have the line work once I turn this off, which is what we want. We just have to do the same thing for the feet, and all will be good to go. So I'm just going to select that color, get rid of it, and so on. Let me zoom in here again. I really should have eaten something before I started this. And let me make sure we've deleted anything inside of the middle of this. Okay, that should work. I'll probably have to reclose this or something at some point, but I think it's all right. Let me just go ahead and do that using the line work again that we were originally using. I don't know exactly what color we have. It will sample something. It's funny because my Photoshop was not sampling from my smaller screen this whole time, and all of a sudden it's just started to be able to, and I'm totally cool with that. I think Photoshop works in that way, but Moho is the one that won't let me sample that way. Okay, close enough. I'm going to go ahead and kind of close these up a little better for now. The line work we want to have here and stable. I'm going to probably have to go back over it multiple times. Really? It's funny, I have a cat that only does this during live streams. And it would be funny if it weren't so annoying. All right. This is really just to kind of lay out the shape more than anything, though. This will all get its own special treatment and coloring and all that good stuff here later on. There's this little eraser here and just kind of get rid of that bit. I'm going to redo a couple lines here. I mean, there's a line and there's a shadow. They are pretty much separate. So our shadow slash color happens around here. Like I said, this is really just a layout kind of setup thing. Kind of like so. There's going to be a lot of color happening throughout this body shape, and I'm just trying to give myself a little bit of a plan. Excuse me. Alright, so with that, just trying to give myself a little bit of an idea where this shadow runs. I do have an image that I am kind of looking at as well to kind of base this off of the full, image, and then of course coloring. I'm going to be sampling from the original image as well. Great, I just got water on my screen. That's my favorite. Being distracted by the cat, and now I've touched something wet. Cool. All right, let's get some of this at least laid out so I can ditch the guide image, as I'm calling it. You can hear me undoing here and there as I lay some of these down when they're not right. Automatically we'll go and undo it just to get that, keep my flow going. And I try to not think too much about doing it either. Alright, I think that's pretty good for that. I'm not going to worry about the shadow on that just yet. That'll be all hand, kind of layout, judged by eye kind of stuff, Okay, cool. Let's get rid of that and just go with this. We're going to need a white paper behind everything, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer, drop it down at the very, very bottom. Since even the watercolor paper is see-through, it's just set to a multiply. I'm going to fill the background with a white now, just so we have a solid color to lay everything over the top of, and now we'll be able to see all of this like so. I'm going to go ahead for now and probably delete this guide image there, and I think I added a new layer instead, so let's grab it and delete it. It's locked, so I'm going to unlock it to delete it. About done, and yes. And now I'm going to lock the line layer because I'm smart, and we're going to go and start doing some painting. I'm going to make the line layer also a multiply, which it should be. Yes, it is. And locking it, I'm going to add, come on, what are we doing? It's being difficult. There we go. Lock the line layer, and now I'm going to do some coloring like so. We're going to call this, I'm just going to put color, even though we're going to have multiple of these more than likely. So we're going to come down and close up the brush layers here, and I'm going to go find the my Kyle's watercolor brushes here. I don't know why these all have to be open, but if you control click to close, it'll close everything. New trick I learned. Going into the watercolor, because this is Kyle's. I have the AF brushes as well, but I'm not familiar with them as much. So, and I know they're simpler, but the Kyle's ones I know exactly what is, that does what I need it to. So I'm going to sample some color, In fact, I think what I'm going to do is probably maybe even limit my screen space by opening up this bird image real quick, like bird example. This one will be here in a smaller window, and I'm going to just refer to it for color sampling when we need it. I kind of wish they let you push these things around. Oh, I guess they do. Cool. So we'll just use this for like color sampling and stuff. We're going to start with our lightest color though, and this is something you want to do in watercolor, is use your lightest color you're probably going to be using. I probably will use lighter than this, so I'm going to sample that yellow, but I'm going to go up to a lighter color even. This will be like our highlight, and we're going to use this as a base. I'm just going to pick this real watercolor here. Make sure our brush is working, and I'm just going to fill the whole thing in. Essentially, what I could do, maybe it'll work, is sort of no. I'm just going to paint, okay, and that's what we're going to do. I'm slightly distracted by all of the noise and the animals and stuff, so having a hard time maintaining my focus and sanity constantly. So when I do this, I don't just push the paint bucket fill, because it's not going to give you the same texture. Also, it doesn't feel like painting when I do that, so I like to actually paint the strokes in, and it does make a huge difference. You'll see at some point here when we start overlapping. I went outside the lens there. We start overlapping, you can use varying pressure, and it will not increase the darkness at this point, but it'll increase the opacity of the strokes. And as they overlap each other with a darker color, it's a lot easier to see, but you'll start seeing how that works. So okay, so there's some yellow. I'm going really. I'm going to use a smaller brush here, and just going to come in and do the tips here a little more. Some of this you'll see the overlay start to happen. Yellow is a really bright color, so I know it's going to wind up being more difficult to see. I'm going to start kind of dropping in a little bit of our shadow just in the denser color that I'm talking about here. And this will start to really have the watercolor effect beginning here. I'm just kind of basing this on what I'm seeing in the image, the original. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. And it won't be exact. It's going to be the approximation. I could go back and erase or whatever is necessary for these areas, but for the most part I'm going to keep them relatively similar. And I'm going to go out and trim this outer edge with an eraser here shortly as well, once it gets to a certain point. But as I add more and more layers of this, you can see it start to get darker. And it really has this watercolor feel. These brushes by Kyle, I'm trying to remember his first name, are amazing. They really are. And I'm going to go a little higher with that. And this is if I was using a smaller brush, for the most part, trying to do, you know, this stuff here. really becoming a fan of watercolor. So like I say, the more times you go over an area, it's like a buildup of paint in the real world of watercolor. Of course, doing that and pushing your brush harder does increase the darkness, but it also increases the opacity of that. So you can start to get the idea how that's going to play out. We're going to sort of come in here and do sort of something like that. I'm going to go ahead and from here down make this a bit darker. So I guess in this story, this kid finds this bird flopping around in a park that has a broken wing. And the bird wants to, of course, fly away with its family. So the kid takes it home and nurses it and stuff. But it's like it's a whole life lesson kind of thing from what I'm gathering from it. It's a very sweet story set to piano music. I don't have the music. I don't think that is the final music yet. So it will have a bit more depth, etc., from what I'm understanding than what I have. The preliminary piece that I'm hearing and have access to at the moment. But it's a sweet story and perfect for something like watercolor, in my opinion. So let's see. Assuming these are every other, which means I got that one wrong, but that's okay. Watercolor is just a really cool look. I'm starting a series of children's books based on watercolor as well, so they'll all be done in watercolor, not necessarily based on watercolor, but you know what I mean. A kid that lives in a building where things happen, or at least they happen in his mind, and teaches kids about using imagination and stuff like that. And it's not about even teaching, it's just I was a kid that was nothing but imagination, and I think it got me through a lot. I drew and painted and sculpted and all that, and that stuff kind of was more like friends to me than people. I had just issues with people, fitting in like kids do. The bully thing, I guess, and so forth. I was a smart kid, and because of that, things are not the easiest to deal with getting along with others and fitting in. People don't like to be intimidated or feel intimidated by the smartness of other people, so that was not the easiest thing for me to do. Got into the real world and it was better for a while, but then there's other things where it's just simply not, no matter what you do. So okay, so I'm going to come in to my line layer. I'm going to have to unlock it for just a second. I'm going to get rid of, on the line layer, Sean, some of the lines that I don't want to keep now. Those were guides for the most part. And now that I have color there, color is kind of acting like the guide. This one will be fine for the moment. These can probably, for a decent amount, go away. I will redarken some of this edge area. crisp that up again, but like I said, this is supposed to be mainly just paint. If I have a little pencil left over, it's okay. It's a very realistic thing to keep. Just needs a darker color through there real quick before I do anything else. And that as well. So this has all been done with one light yellow color, which I find to be pretty cool that that can be done. So what I'm going to do now is come in with a little darker color. Something a little more probably pushed into the orange. And sort of fill out this chest a little more, I think. Locking the line layer. Go back to the color layer. Very important. Remember to do this stuff. So as I lay this in now, let's make this brush a little bigger, in my opinion. And this will also overlay the yellow that I already have. I'm just going to kind of do this. So it will make the yellow darker as well. I'm not lifting my brush at all here. So I want these to kind of blend better. To overlay and to stay, you know, that overlaid color. Pushing a little harder, you get a little solid, more solid color. Cool. And then if I want, now going back over this again to get a little more deeper color through this chest area, or the others as well, you know, if we want. Very realistic watercolor using these brushes. I think that's looking all right. It's aight. It's aight. All right, so maybe even just a little bit more color through here. So if you get any color that you don't like or blending you don't like, you can always go back. Beautiful brush here, and I try to not use this smearing all over, but break it up. It's like a smudge brush, but it's for watercolor, and it is a watercolor blender. And so I just do it here and there. You don't want to kill the actual watercolor edges and stuff so much if you don't have to, but if there's things that just aren't blending the way you want, this takes that, literally takes the edge off of that stuff. But see, I'm just tapping it here and there because I don't want to destroy the actual watercolor effect either. So you can even come back in here with some of this, just kind of touch it up a little bit. All right, and then maybe even with this same orange back in our brush, we can come in here, you know, and adjust some of this stuff. I'm thinking just oranging that out slightly. I think it looks good. We can make a smaller brush here and zoom in a bit. This beak now is going to be a much darker orange, so I'll deal with that here shortly. So I'll go in and probably erase the any of the pencil line work there. This one we're going to take to a much more reddish orange. I'm staying light. You want to make sure you save your highlights though, so anything you put in here is going to be kind of like the lightest color. So if I brush this in like so, this will be mostly my lightest color, and then you can obviously come in and push a little harder in certain areas to make a much more dense or darker bit. Sort of just saving my highlight there some, being a little darker through here. Maybe toward that edge. If you want, you can come back with your blender. I've only used 2 brushes so far, so you guys know. And we're going to knock the size of that down quite a lot. And just sort of tap here and there. Don't like blend the whole thing in. And it really is realistic, because you have a little bit of that bleed and stuff like that. Let's go ahead and work on the eye now. I'm just going to swap this to a black, but I'm not going to, it's not going to fill in 1000% at once. So back to our brush, we're going to knock this even farther down, just so I can be a little bit more precise here. So this is all going to be the same kind of level of black. See, it has that nice watercolor feel. I'm just going to push that in there real carefully around, maybe even a little bit more through areas away from that. Nice. So I think you guys get the idea. We want to also come back here with our little orange color and sort of start laying another little bit here and there, definitely under the shadowed area. It's amazing what just a small amount of color can do. The cat even agrees, apparently. Wish these would hold my settings as I switch brushes out. I have to go back, and it just goes right back to the default each time. It's a little annoying. It's all good though. All right, cool. So that is that. Let's go ahead and work on some of these little feather edges and stuff like that through here, I suppose. That's the eraser I'm using. And just kind of come in here and maybe a little bigger than 10. So the darker parts, I'm just going to paint in a bit darker. Go figure. So I'm being pretty sloppy and loose. That's totally okay. We have that lovely blender if we need it. It just breaks the color up. Keeps it from being too hard edged and ugly. Like that cat. Just going to increase the size of this slightly. Maybe even a little more. I don't like to use too tiny of a brush if I don't have to. Yeah, the beauty of the transparency of a watercolor, you get this really cool natural built-in type shadowing. Because you can see through it. My cat's making a very pathetic meow now. Okay, so pretty much that's pretty good. Kind of throw in a little more texture. Kind of through in here, I think. Maybe into just a little more darkness toward the bottom here. And then I'm going to take something like this and sort of blot it through. It's a bit orange, but we're going to do the same thing to some degree through here. I might have gotten the overall body a little bit light, so I'm going to go back with some yellow, probably more along these lines of yellow, and just sort of break up or bring out more of the body color a little bit more. I think it's just too whitish, as opposed to the edge. You know, we want it a bit white, but this was a little too weak color-wise, so I'm just going to kind of brush it in. The overall color anyway. Got a little more yellows in there. In there. Maybe toward this side of the wing. I think that's much better personally. Like I said, we can bring our eraser in and just start chipping away any of these leftover bits. Now typically we would be using a watercolor eraser like this, because it's going to give us this sort of edgy kind of feeling, but we don't need that necessarily on the edges, but I figure why not use it, right? I'm going to have to zoom in here though, but I'm going to use these. Let's just zoom in here, start cleaning any of this up. Smaller brush though. We can just zip that around. And we don't have to be super precise about this. I'm a little bit slightly obsessed about it, but not horribly. I'm going to blend in a little bit of this as well now that I think about it, because I think it's a little chunky in that neck area for the shadows. You just kind of break it up slightly like this. And I'm going to go in and make that underbeak shadow a little bit stronger as well, I think, because I think that's a little too light. So I'm going to grab this color. We can just slap that again, kind of right in there with a much smaller brush again. Probably too small of a brush, but it's all right. I can say any kind of issues can be blended. Just pull down our blender, knock it down. So I'm saying the size keeps going back up, kind of a little kind of annoying. Any kind of yeah, that's much better. Cool, that works for me. Let's make that blender just slightly bigger now. Just kind of through some of these areas that are a little liney, a little overly liney. And I did want to fade off the tops of these just like this. Don't you wish you could do that with real watercolor that easily? It's like adding water though. I mean, it's pretty similar. I just like to break up a lot of this stuff that's too chunky. Blotchy, blobby. Can use a much bigger one if we want as well, but I just want to make sure I don't destroy that integrity of the whole brushwork you know, just a few of these areas that are a little too blotchy, which is what you would do, you know, with the real stuff. So I don't consider this, you know, like faking it. This is just a different way of doing the same thing. Purists, obviously, are not going to care for the digital version, which I get. I think real watercolor is cool as hell, if you want to know my opinion. Might be a little too red toward the bottom. Go back and throw some different color on that if possible. It's a bit red. Are you being weird? I think I'm fighting it with my pen or something is not letting me zoom. What are you doing? Thank you. I constantly have my fingers on the Control Z for undoing. If you guys have commented and I haven't seen it yet, just comment again. Plus, I'm looking at the chat now if you need me to comment. Pardon me if I eat something while we're working. I tend to multitask a lot, so got some eggs and toast here. I usually eat some Greek yogurt. I should have called this breakfast and birds. And I'm so sorry if for any reason you can hear me eating. Those of you who have a problem with that, I have a problem with that. Let's see. More than likely I should have made this a time lapse. But if you do watercolor or have not done it in a digital watercolor and you have not tried Kyle's brushes, just get it. Get all of his stuff. It's very good. Yeah, this is feeling overtly red to me. So I'm wondering what I can do about that. I can probably, it's all in the same layer. Select an area and desaturate. There's got to be a desaturation brush in here, right? I don't know, but let's just look it up and see. I'd try not to do a desaturate. All right. I was trying not to do a selection because it's going to be a lot harder. So I'm going to do a low hardness on that. Just kind of make this a bit bigger. Let's see how well this desaturates that red. See it browning it out a little. See, it's making it quite dark. So we're going to go back with our lovely eraser and redo this and reblend it in, because that's not going to fly, as they say in bird terms. Granted, you could not do this in watercolor. There's a version you could do. You can erase or paint out areas. The purists would be cringing. So now we're going to go back here and close up all of our things, get our watercolor back, get our blender, or just our paint here. Let me just take the main color here and just not fill, but paint. Probably with one of our basic brushes here, like the 5 I've been using a lot. And just start dropping this back in. And what I'll do, this will be blended once all of this is back in here. And I'm trying not to overdo any of the coloring, etc. And then we'll throw another layer in here to give this a little more density, darkness, really. And now I'm going to go in and blend these back together. And then I'll go in through throw some more brush strokes on it so that it's not, unbrushed and smooth, because nobody likes that. Ain't nobody got time for that. I think that's working a little better, and then we will, like I said, go in with my brush and or maybe even the eraser here and pull in some areas like this, being about erasing those, or I'm sorry, blending those back in with a nice overall. That way we have kind of lighter and darker areas. Then we can go on and throw on another really cool brush that I find very helpful. So this just breaks the color up a bit here, being so uniform and dark. Then we'll come back in here with, if I can find it, it adds a paper texture back in. Looking. You got to be really careful and light with it. So this paper texture, I got to be real light with it. So I'm just going to throw this back in. You'll start to see some of that grain come back in. It's almost like adding grain back into your images if you have overly smoothed them. Just kind of gives you a little more of that. It works kind of like a blender, but adding paper texture back in. So that sort of saves the day right there. Perfect. And I'm just going to throw a little action up in there. And then if we want, of course, to come back with a less saturated paint, just come back up here to my 5 brush, which is like my favorite lately, and just start throwing in some actual shadow that's not so red. Maybe a little bit of that in here. We have a little cohesive kind of feel. think that's working. I'm going to make a smaller brush here and just start kind of pulling a little shadow right here. And one right on the edge of the feathers there. Works really well. And these are supposed to be kind of an orange, but I'm thinking to make these a little bit browner like that. I think that works nicely. I'm also going to give this a bit of a shadow kind of to this side. A little bit more maybe happening on that eye. I think that's working. Okay. Let's get these filled in. These will all be trimmed up. And we'll take our so this is another blender. We'll just have to go back and make sure we don't overblend. Which I believe I have done. I like the standard one. I always use them more than anything. I'm just tapping as I go through here to kind of certain areas only. Take our eraser, start chewing away at the overlapped parts. I'm gonna have to go in with a much smaller one in a while. And I think I'll throw a little of that paper texture back in. Right through here. You gotta be very careful. You can see that it just instantly kicks in unless you turn down your brush a little bit, but I think that works. And not bad. Still, I think he's a little too red toward the bottom, but that's that can be solved yet again the same way. So I think that's what I'll do is I'll have to go in, redelete that bottom edge, that bottom area all together again. I don't know why that did. I don't know what's going on with my brush here. So just kind of take out all this again. Leave the feet, but I hate this. I just kind of want this effect that I'm having here, so we're going to sample kind of this. The base here, throw in heavier color. This is just adding texture. Let me Go back to my 5 for now. That is still too red. Makes it 5. Let's go ahead and go with more of a dark yellow. That is the luxury of digital watercolor. I would never have been able to fix this with the other. Okay, so I'm just kind of getting a value started here, and then I'm going to go back in and just blend this real quick. And then I'll go in and put some brush strokes, because that red was just like, kept just popping out way too much. I think that's quite a bit better already. I mean, a little red in there will be fine, but not what I had. I think that's a lot better. And a small amount of blur to break that up, or blending. Yeah, I'm much better with that. Then a slight amount of paper texture back on the top. Biggest thing here is knowing when to quit messing with it. So, alright, so we'll go back in with a smaller size here and start trimming off edges. Okay, I think that's working now. Cool. All right, so I can go back at any time and take the outlines off, stuff like that if we want. I won't be able to tell exactly how and where until I get some kind of background in here, but I could throw something on here just temporarily that will not be a part of the actual character or anything, but we can just take like a large wet brush, like this is like called Big Softy. I think that one's a great one. We can go ahead and do kind of a bluish color, like maybe something, and maybe not so electric, but maybe something kind of like this. And what I would like to do is also select the object. Let me see if I can do that. I know. The color, we're just going to select that, have it auto select, and then use that kind of as a mask. So select, deselect, I'm sorry, select inverse, because this won't have the same opacity. If I just put a blue behind it, you'll be able to see it. So with that, now I can come in here and start, you know, doing some of this. Kind of see what this would look like. And you can see that with the color behind him, we can now tell where his color stops and starts. I'm just trying to break up the pressure there a bit more. If we turn the selection off, though, you'll see that when I color on that background, we might get a little bleed through, like right here. It's not horrible, and it actually cleans the outside edges up a little bit. So I'll go ahead and leave it, I guess. But yeah, something like that. Because this is a thinner part of him, is why. I think that works okay, given the overall. So, perfect. Excellent. All right, I'm going to go eat. I'll come back later on and do another video for you guys. And hopefully more will watch then. Cool. All right. Talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching.